Poppies are not normally worn on May 28th, but this May 28th, many Canadians are wearing poppies. This May 28th is a very special day, a day of significance in this country's history. Hello, I'm Peter Mansbridge at the National War Memorial in the nation's capital, where over the next hour, the remains of a Canadian victim of the First World War will be placed in Canada's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The identity of this soldier, unknown. With me to help tell the story, the director of the Canadian War Museum, Jack Granitson. Jack, the important significance of this day.
Peter, this is a country that has never fought an aggressive war. We've only fought for our principles, for our friends, for that we believe in. We've paid a terrible price. We've had 117,000 dead in the wars of the 20th century, 27,000 of them having no grave. So it's entirely appropriate at the beginning of the new century, we bring back the remains of one of those unknown soldiers to create what will become a major national shrine in the country's capital.
Now, the focus of this ceremony will take place here at the National War Memorial, a spectacular structure that has been in place here in the nation's capital for decades. There, in front of the War Memorial, is the new Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You see the straps in place which will receive the coffin when it arrives here in about an hour from now. A special ceremony, the Governor General will be in attendance here, the Prime Minister, many veterans, and thousands of the people of Ottawa who have turned out today, and there's Canadians who have flown into the nation's capital to take part in this ceremony. You can see a real mix of ages, and that was the important thing when are part of this ceremony, that younger Canadians too realize the sacrifices that were given by generations of Canadians in wars of the 20th century. So this is where the ceremony will take place, the actual placing of the remains of the unknown soldier in the tomb. But over on the hill, just a few blocks away, the remains have been lying beneath the Peace Tower in the Hall of Honor. These are live pictures. This is the Hall of Honor along the center corridor of the center block of Parliament buildings. If you've been watching television or reading the newspapers over the past few days, then you know the story. The remains were flown back from France on Thursday after being handed over to Canadian officials at Vimy Ridge. The remains will be picked up here and taken by gun carriage through the streets of Ottawa and brought to the National War Memorial. Jack, Vimy Ridge, those magic words that many say turned this country into a nation in 1917.
It was the greatest Canadian victory of the First World War. It was the first time that the 4 divisions of the Canadian Corps fought together, still under British command, under the plan. And it had been an impregnable position. The British had failed to take it, the French had failed to take it. The Canadians on Easter Monday 1917 did take it. Casualties were terrific, 3,600 dead, 6,500 wounded, but it was, in fact, a major victory.
All right, looking live once again, not far from the National War Memorial, where the procession has begun through the streets of Ottawa that will head up to the Parliament buildings to pick up the unknown soldier and to bring him back by gun carriage to the National War Memorial. It is a lengthy procession. There will be a band, guard of honor, the military pallbearers, the honorary pallbearers, and the actual pallbearers who will be placing the remains inside the tomb of the unknown soldier. Now, you saw that glimpse just a moment ago of the scene in the center block of the Parliament buildings. It has been a remarkable last couple of days here in Ottawa. Literally tens of thousands of Canadians have joined this ceremony by going to the Parliament buildings and walking up to the casket that contains the remains and making their special thoughts and moments at that spot. Here's some of the moments that we've witnessed in these last couple of days. And like the crowd you saw a few moments ago live outside the War Memorial, The people who've been streaming into the Parliament buildings to stand for a moment in front of the casket have been Canadians of all ages. Young ones being told by their parents what this represents. For some young, it'll be hard to comprehend at this moment, but over time they will become familiar with the Canadian story. Soldiers and their families. And this line had been going continuously until about an hour ago, when they finally had to make room in the Hall of Honor to prepare for the exit of the unknown soldier. 11 at night. Yesterday there was a lineup that headed out right through the Hall of Honor, out onto the street. And this was the hope of many of those who were a part of this idea to bring and create a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, to have Canada's young and old have a chance to remember. Here's some of the comments we received from some of those who'd seen.
Well, both my parents were in the war, and so it was in a sense to remember them. For you, I guess?
Yeah, I'm just, you know, we live in Ottawa, and I just felt that it was a good thing to do. It's quite emotional, even though I really didn't lose anybody in the war.
Well, I wanted to pay my respects to all the soldiers who went to war representing Canada to keep the peace.
Until Sunday afternoon I will be here, and for me it's very special, and because I lost a couple of grandfather in the World War, and it's important for me. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very glad to be here too.
Well, it's nice to see they're bringing the fellow home after, what is it, 80 years or something, and every other country has, just about, I suppose, has an unknown soldier, and Canada's kind of falls back on their veterans here.
Emotional, much more emotional than I thought it would be, yes, yeah, very emotional.
Just some of the comments of the tens of thousands of Canadians of all ages who paid their respects to Canada's unknown soldier. Now, the actual remembrance and the paying of respects began on Thursday with all the main dignitaries, the Prime Minister, the Governor General, and some of the people who were very much responsible for this event taking place at all. And we have, unfortunately, some sad news to report on that front. One of the first people to go up and pay respects alongside the Veteran Affairs Minister, George Baker, was this man, Chuck Murphy. He's on the right of your screen, the president of the Canadian Legion. And Chuck Murphy worked very hard to make this event possible, to mark this ceremony. But unfortunately, in that evening, a few hours after this moment, Chuck Murphy passed away in a Ottawa hotel room. Very sad moment for all of those who've been working so hard over so many years, Jack, to make this moment possible, this memory of Canada's unknown soldier.
The idea of a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here started in earnest about 1995. The Legion were the ones who pushed it. It got really going in 1998, and it was in fact Chuck Murphy who pushed it to completion. I think he was helped enormously by General Romeo Dallaire at National Defence Headquarters, and then the Millennium Fund set up by the government to mark year 2000 provided a good deal of
Boards Parliament Hill. This is the RCMP escort, the RCMP gun carriage that will, in the next hour or so, be carrying the remains of the unknown soldier back to the National War Memorial for its placement in the tomb of the unknown soldier. Now, over these next couple of hours, to help tell this story, Susan Bonner has joined us, and she's out there in front of the War Memorial with some of the people who have gathered here today to mark this occasion. Susan?
Thank you, Peter. I'm privileged to be here with a World War II veteran. Ernie Payne was an able seaman who served on the HMCS Louisbourg. Tell me, Mr. Payne, what does this mean to you?
Very much, because we lost 38 men on board our ship blowing up when we were bombed in the Mediterranean.
Men that were buried at sea.
Yeah.
So what does the tomb mean for you?
Remember those that sacrificed their lives for this country, and I was proud of them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Peter, back to you.
Thank you, Susan. And it is important to remember that while the focus is often on those members of the Canadian Armed Forces who lost their lives, especially in the Great War and especially on the terrible battlefields of France and Belgium, that so many of those who are being remembered, members of the Canadian Navy and of course later in the Air Force, as that chap mentioned, so many falling to unmarked graves, obviously from the Navy at the bottom of the ocean, and also in the Air Force, some planes that were lost at sea and some over land and across the mountains of Europe that were never recovered. They are remembered today as well. Now, Jack mentioned earlier the importance of Vimy Ridge. This is the area where, of course, Canadians won the famous battle in 1917 on Easter Monday of April in 1917. It is also the area where the remains were handed over to Canadian officials on Thursday. CBC's correspondent Don Murray was there for part of those special ceremonies. Here's his report on what happened.
He died and was buried near Vimy Ridge, in a grave marked only, known unto God. Today he was taken back to Vimy Ridge, a soldier of the First World War, a Canadian. The Somme, Ypres, Passchendaele, Vimy. To fight in those battles in that war, one soldier said, was to walk into the mouth of hell. 67,000 Canadian soldiers died in that hell. 20,000 of them fell and were never found. Paul Métivier also fought at Vimy and lived. He is 100. Once again this week, he inspected the trenches and tunnels at Vimy. Clean and ordered now, not the nightmare of fear, shells, rats, mud, and water of the spring of 1917.
It wasn't a nice place. There was nothing nice about it. No greenery, it was bad.
Should be commemorated individually.
At the foot of the Canadian monument at Vimy, old men gathered and old men remembered today. Veterans of the First and of other wars. They were there to honor a soldier in a coffin, unknown now to all. Paul Métivier read the Act of Remembrance. In the Second World War, he lost a son, shot down, and never found.
The sacrifices that have been made by the soldiers who gave their lives at the best of time of their life, it seems to me is worth remembering.
Atop the monument, a lone bagpiper played a lament. The sun broke through thick cloud. A veteran once wrote, "Sunlight on these battlefields is false light. Only in the granite light of dawn can the eye apprehend what is here spread out, the last landscape of tens of thousands who lie dead." Today, from that landscape, one of the dead began a long final journey back to his country. Don Murray, CBC News, Vimy Ridge.
And back live now to the National War Memorial in Ottawa. And there's Paul Métivier, right there, as you saw him in Don's item, over in France, made the trip over. And he's back here now, 99 years old, 100 on July 6th of this summer, in remarkable shape, has made this voyage, has talked to all the reporters who've asked for him. And next to him, well, not next to him, but just over to him, shaking hands, standing there, is Smokey Smith, one of the Canada's Victoria Cross winners from the Second World War. He was also over at Vimy this week as part of these ceremonies, and both Smokey Smith and Paul Métivier will be a part of this ceremony today, both with remarks. So they prepare for the arrival in about a half hour's time from Parliament Hill, the remains of Canada's unknown soldier. At Parliament Hill, the flag at half-mast and will remain that way even after the ceremony today because of the death of Rocket Richard, who was appointed to the Privy Council by Brian Mulrooney a number of years ago. And as that also ranks the flag being lowered on his behalf. So the gun carriage now arriving on Parliament Hill with its RCMP escort. Bit of history to this gun carriage as well. It's been in the possession of the Mounties for over 125 years. Was used in the uprisings of the 1880s. It has basically been a museum piece for most of the last 60 or 70 years. Today will be used to carry the remains on its voyage through the streets of downtown Ottawa to its final resting place at the War Memorial. Fair-sized crowd on the hill as well to witness this portion of the ceremonies. Bearer party now entering the Parliament buildings, heading over to the Hall of Honor. The applause you may hear in the background is here at the War Memorial, where various veterans groups have been arriving while this is going on inside the Hall of Honor. Chaplain General moving into position. They're right beneath the, well, that's the main rotunda area, the center block, Parliament buildings. Now just entering the Hall of Honor. This spectacular building was only finished near the end of the First World War. It had burned down everything except the library area in a terrible fire during the war. But the Hall of Honor was created at that time to mark the achievements of Canadians who were to have special recognition